Hey there, today on the Old Time Mini Show, we're going to try to make part 2 of a 2-part mold, but first, we'll see if the mold we made last time actually worked. Hey there, good evening. If joining in live here to the Old Time Mini Show, thanks for joining in again. So if you're new to this show here on the Warner DM's channel, going through a process of making old-time homemade miniatures, making molds, and actually duplicating some classic miniatures from the makers of D&D back in the 80s, actually. And this is something that I used to do some years ago. No 3D printing happening here. So using silicone rubber to make these molds, and then some kind of low-temperature miniature metal that we'll actually be starting in on next week. So at the moment, we're trying to make our first mold for one of the player characters in the Star Frontiers Metal Miniatures line. Backrees, thanks so much again for checking in that we're actually live. I appreciate it. Star Frontiers had some unique aliens, right? Again, if I was doing fantasy stuff, all kinds of places I could get that. But for these specific, unique aliens in a campaign I'm going to run, I do want the player characters to have the actual correct appearance. So I'm going through this first pack here from 1983, I believe. Thanks to the people last time that pointed out that it's Dave Trampier that made this wonderful art on the cover of this box, and other people caught it. I missed the fact that he does have his DT acronym here in the middle, but it's not the way I'm used to Tramp making art, and it's not how I'm used to seeing him sign his work either. So I totally missed the little sci-fi DT right there, but that's so really good catch on that. That is not... Tramp had so much versatility. Anyway, caught on to that later. So among the races here, you have the blob-like Dralasites. Obviously, you have humans. You have the Vrusk, the insect-like Vrusk. You not pictured here. There's the space monkey Yazirians. So we decided to start with the blobby Dralasites. Seemed like the easiest thing for me to do. They're kind of the smallest thing. They're basically amoeba men. So if my Dralasites come out a little bit malformed, that's probably... They might be better, actually. It might actually be an improvement. So at the moment... Again, this whole process, I haven't done it for about 10 years, and I'm even modifying it on the fly here a little bit. So here's the mold, the first part of the 2-part mold that we made last time, and I'm doing a new process where I'm using Lego knockoffs to make kind of a nice, firm molding box. And I've got rubber on the top half. I have our first player character miniature that I've actually ever planned on casting, named Blorpy. Resting comfortably since last Thursday night. And then the bottom half of that right now is some molding clay, basically Play-Doh, on the bottom of it. So if this works properly, I should be able to get this out of the box, flip it over, rebox it, pull the Play-Doh off, and then pour rubber for the second part of the mold on top. So I have to be kind of careful not to shift Blorpy in there. As I take the dough out, I got to be careful that he doesn't move from where he's sitting, so I can get a nice rubber mold on the top half of him is the plan there. I should mention again, old school miniature molding here is not... I can't say that the risk is entirely zero. So the original models, little safety note, the original models are lead-based. So once I get off the stream, I'm going to carefully wash my hands. Obviously, I'm not going to joke around and put it on my mouth or anything like that. I'm going to keep it away. Like next week when I'm working in the kitchen, I'm going to try to really keep it away from any food-bearing implements. The silicone has vapors. When I pour the rubber, it has vapors. So once again here in New York tonight, I went out for a walk and it started sleeting. And to be perfectly safe here, I got to keep my windows open while I do this. I pour the rubber just in case. I have an air quality monitor right here on my desk. Trying to be safe. It worked out fine last week, but again, you ought to be, if you do this, you ought to be in a well-ventilated room, maybe with like professional ventilation there. There's a release agent I use that I don't even want to do it here. I lean out my third floor window when I use that. And in 2 or 3 weeks, when we think about actually painting these things, kind of same story. So my window's open here. Got a nice comfy sweater. Think I'm pretty well set up here. So and if we have an extra time tonight, we'll think about the next. I think the next one I want to make is probably a Xerian miniature. So if we have extra time, we'll confirm we're going to do that, and also look at how the Duncan molds were made, which I noticed they did. Again, with my first player characters, I noticed the Duncan molds are doing something kind of clever that I overlooked. So maybe going forward, I might have to adjust how I did this a little bit. If you're interested in seeing, if you are interested in seeing miniatures get consumed, I invite you to watch the last Thanksgiving episode of Book of War, in which we actually did have some food-based elements on. I'm not going to tell you what it was, but there's some food-based elements on the table that did actually get consumed during the play in rather large quantities. And we had such a good time. It was so much fun. And we were so sick afterwards. I was like, I almost had to go to the hospital. I will never do that again. It was such a mistake. So literally don't try this at home. I wish I hadn't tried it at home sometimes. William, thanks. We cannot thank William enough on the channel here. And I gotta, there's so many great things that we have for projects, and sometimes we don't have enough time to execute. We've had a bunch of kind of really interesting, intense things happen at Wandering DM's HQ just in the last couple of days. So hopefully we can get back to some other projects that some people have pending. So let's get to the demolding here. And this is the point where I realized I hadn't thought through how to remove this. I'm gonna be a little punchy tonight. There's a small chance I might abbreviate the stream tonight because possibly a little short on sleep for a couple of reasons. Anyway, okay, what am I supposed to do here? So I guess. Okay, so maybe I'm gonna slightly start to take the Lego-y stuff off and see how far I can get with that. At some point, I got to flip it over. I think grab a spoon. Well, you know what I should point out. Okay, so here's the cup, right? That I actually mix the two parts of the silicone mold in. And some of us were thinking about last time if I did more advanced prep, maybe I could have something that I actually use the excess molding rubber for. I'm making things that are really smaller than it was intended for. So as much as I'm trying to be efficient with the rubber material, I wind up having some excess and wind up having some that wasn't used. But anyway, I left everything exactly how we left it last Thursday. The rubber does have, I think, a 6-hour curing time. So if I'd wanted to the next morning, I could have grabbed all this stuff. But here it is in the cup with maybe about, I don't know, 1/3 of an inch here that's stuck in here. So at this point, I ought to be able to just peel it all off with my fingers. Maybe I'll get a spoon in here or something like that. So I just roll it up. There you go. Okay, so I wind up accidentally having like a really good cast to the bottom of that cup there. And this I can't reuse. This is unfortunately just a waste. So if I did some advanced planning, we could make some terrain elements for Book of War or something like that. But I just kind of clean the cup up. Zarlek, I'm so glad you tuned in. I will say, if Dan was the only person on any project, I would probably have streams running about 9 o'clock. And Frank, if you ever see a stream of mine that is running at a different time, either earlier or later, that was because I was negotiating. Should I tell this? Should I say this? It's because I was negotiating with like a normal person's kind of more normal schedule. and making a compromise one way or the other. Okay, so pretty easy to clean up. The rubber basically all comes out in one unit, which is nice. So I've reused this cup over and over again for like a decade at this point. Knobby bits there. Okay, so I'll just use that again later. So I am trying to demold this thing here. So I have my saran wrap to make sure that it didn't leak out. I do have half a mind to try sometime just not even using the saran wrap and seeing if it's tight enough to hold the rubber in without leaking. That makes sense, right, Zarlik? Yeah. If we're elsewhere, you know, I have to keep a list of time zones with, you know, show issues and possible guests, and be like, no, and where are you vacationing this summer? Right, okay. Okay, so what should I? This is literally the first time I've ever demolded this process, so I am I guess probably deboxing. This is probably the safest thing: is debox the Legos. Over here, and I'll just remake the mold box. Get the saran wrap out of the way. What did I do before? So in the past, I would use poster board. I'd make a custom box of just the right size. I'd use a bunch of glue and tape. And then I think I would just undo the whole thing. I guess I would attempt to use the same board and refashion it around the other side, I guess is what I would do. And then half the time it wouldn't work and I'd just have to recut more poster board. So I guess I got to take the thing all the way out. I want to remember what dimensions I had there. Okay. Try to be careful. Okay, can I? All right. Okay. So there is our little half brownie with rubber on one side and the Play-Doh on the other. In this saran wrap. Okay, does the saran wrap come off nicely or poorly? Yeah, that's not too bad. Yeah, okay. What's the generic term for saran wrap? Is it? I mean, I can't think of what the generic term for this is. Freezer wrap or something? Okay, so there's that, pretty good. So I don't really have a super nice cling wrap, plastic wrap, yeah. I shouldn't say a brand name unless they're supporting us, right? If I'm smart about this, they should pay for product placement. Anyway, so having taken out the cling wrap, I don't have a super nice surface, I guess. I mean, it doesn't functionally matter, but the cling wrap has clung to the sides, and my other molds are a little bit more square. So I guess my OCD is making me not super happy about how that looks, but it shouldn't really matter. Okay. Now, if I'm totally efficient, maybe I could reuse this piece of cling wrap, maybe. I don't see why not. Is that one piece? This is one piece. hopefully, I'm hoping that next week it's going to be a little bit more warmer when I do this. I think it's like here it's supposed to be like, I think right now it's in the 30s, and maybe next week it ought to be in the 50s by then. There's a fold here. Why am I not getting this fold? Okay, so maybe what I should do is do this. Line this. Okay, so I'm going to take what used to be the top part. Where is my pore hole now? I think that's the pore hole. No, that's not it. So somewhere in here there's a pore hole, right? And if I have a piece of clay that forms a hole where I'm ultimately going to pour the molten metal in, but I think I had rubber pouring over. I think it's here, that part. You can see that part is smooth there. I think that's where the pore hole is. Just slightly got covered up. Okay, so if this works, I ought to be able to take this, place it back in the cube. Okay, so while I have this exposed, so now I'm going to take off the. Oh, you kind of get the divots there. I was wondering if that would happen actually. I get the divots from the Lego structures. Somebody told me what the little knobby things in the Legos were. I didn't remember it. Okay, let me get a spoon. If I'm really clever, I can even reuse the Play-Doh stuff. So obviously this stuff doesn't last forever. If I keep it covered, the stuff that I opened up last time is still soft. This was all covered, so this is still soft. Studs, thank you so much. You can see the studs in the bottom there. Okay, so I'm going to very carefully undo the Play-Doh stuff, hopefully without shifting Blorpy in there. Go for closer work. Okay, so you can see the registers, right? Which I came so close to forgetting last time, which I tend to do. So the little holes that I made for rubber to pour in, so you have these latches and have the two halves line up properly. So those formed correctly. Okay, so I can feel Blorpy in there. Maybe a knife would be better. I think this is what I'm supposed to do, I think. I'm also trying to be gentle that I don't damage the registers, as my partner Isabelle called them. Actually, I think next time I do this, I think I want to use this orange Play-Doh that I've got, so you can see the difference between the pore hole that's right here. This digging stuff out seems like a problem to me right this second, but I don't I don't think I had any more clever way than just mechanically digging it. You get a tiny little feeling of being an archaeologist. Okay. It's time for a smaller tool. So, you know, I don't know what you use for tools for your miniatures. At some point, I got like a secondhand set of dental tools, which I find really, really useful sometimes. Can't remember how I got these some number of years ago. So I have a couple of dental picks, which I use for stuff. And then I threw some other stuff in here. I have my pin vise for when I gotta, you know, put metal pieces of wire inside a miniature to keep it together, and an X-Acto knife and a file and stuff like that. Also some tweezers. It's kind of my little makeshift kit of miniature tools. Some cotton swabs. I don't think I used to use that. Would you expect to put something on the cotton swabs, like alcohol or something? Because I can adjust on the fly here. I'm not. Interesting. Let's try that. A little ball of dough. So you want me to Katamari Darcy it, is that it? Did I get that right? Okay, good thing to try. That doesn't seem to be helping. Bumping the light with my head. All right, so far this seems to be the more painstaking part of the process. So I recover my skills from 10 years back. I think on the Wandering DM's Discord server, some of us were talking about the pros and cons of the old Star Frontiers game, and you know, I like the percentile dice. I do kind of like a game that has percentages. You know, and collapsing that to a D20 is can be smart. I particularly kind of want to cleanse my palate with a roll low mechanic. And then someone pointed out that the weapons in Star Frontiers do a relatively small amount of damage, and I was like, oh right, I do kind of recall that. I also kind of like that the lasers, or the laser weapons in Star Frontiers, has a setting on it, and the player can just say, I have my laser on power 5, and that means if you hit, that's how many dice you roll for damage, which I always thought was kind of elegant. should I? Okay, this is all Play-Doh. I must say, I don't remember this part of the process. I feel like I remember every other part, and this is like, this feels, I must have done this. So digging out with that little piece of wire I've got for the porthole connector. I might, you know what? I don't mind this. You know, I do so much work, as I'm sure all of us do, on the computer, right? That I actually don't mind something that's actually physically in the world. I feel like parts of my brain are like, yeah, there you go. That's what we're here for. I think the thing with the Star Frontier's mechanic is I like the roll low. I like being able to say, you have this many chances in X. And you don't have to like add or subtract in order to come up with the target value. Just like roll under that thing. And of course, we all know that the vast majority of, frankly, most of the mechanics in original D&D are roll a d6 under a number. With the exception of the optional alternate rules that use a d20 for attacks and saves. Okay, so trying to get this gunk off without moving the model. Oh, where did it come from? think I might look for a cotton swab and some alcohol. I'm wondering if that will help remove some of this stuff. Okay, that's pretty good. That's pretty good recovery there. Whoops. Yeah, when you so then of course roll low, 1 becomes the best, and the question arises: what do you call it? Because you can't call it natural. You can't call it a natural 20. That's not the best. Now it's aces. Which is the same for every die, right? We all know every single die, the best is 1. Just like the best armor class should be 1. Compared to other natural numbers. Okay, these bits all over the place. Okay, let me try this. Yeah, right. Okay, let me try this. I'm not even sure I have that. Do I have that in this box here? Okay, let me step in there. I'm going to step in the other room here and look for cotton swabs or something like that. I'll be right back in a minute. Okay. So I got Q-tips, right? Is that what we're talking about? Those are cotton swabs, right? I caught that. I caught that. Get that shit out. Get that shit out of the chat. Where's the moderator when I need one? So I was like, do we have Q-tips? Do we have cotton balls? And so I checked in with the partner here. I said, do we have cotton balls? She said, no, that is not allowed in this household. So I've got to respect that. I mean, I probably should have asked why, but I'm like, yep, right. Oh, look at that. Yeah, definitely picking some stuff up. D7s. If anyone hasn't had the opportunity, I highly recommend that you go to the Wandering DM's Twitch channel and go to our clips. And William has done a truly epic job of pulling out really wonderful clips from many of our shows. And I was there, I think, yesterday or the day before, and I just spent like an hour just laughing my ass off at these really, really great moments. One of them being one of my rants about D7s. In which I believe, right, it was a Mother's Day episode. And so I said, you know, since you can use them to represent the Bristol stool scale, I said, I hereby call it the poop die. That's what I said on that show. But the reality is, I call it the shit die. Among my close friends, which I count you guys as. D7, give me a break. Okay, I was thinking about grabbing some alcohol for this, but this seems to be working pretty well without it. This is new. This is a good trick, actually. This is new to me. I definitely didn't do this before. Okay. It's not going to be perfect. I'm going to have to A, avoid stabbing myself in the eye with this tool, and B, at some point call it good enough. I wonder if there's some substance I could have put. I mean, I already put release agent on top of this. So I guess that's as good as I'm going to do. Anyway, I think I was trying to say I'm going to have to like not let my OCD get carried away. Oh, okay. Now that's his right. That's his gun down. Okay, so I got to remember this little bit right here is the gun that he's holding in his left paw, pseudopod. Right, so it's got a little bit of rubber and dough around it. Should I expose that? See, now I'm debating with myself. Should I take? There's a little layer of rubber on top of the gun, and I'm debating whether I should remove it for this step or leave it. I feel like probably. Probably remove it so that the stuff that gets on this side of it is in a nice big mass, I think. You know, Zora, like I'm noticing your comment. There actually are a couple key things that I made a to-do note to clip out on YouTube. From those, William did such a good job. There's such a large library that I wouldn't want anyone to have to go through all of that work again. I'm glad that on Twitch the clips are, as far as I can tell, permanent. Right, make shorts, right? Because of course YouTube has the clips feature and also has the separate shorts now.
Yeah, it might be slightly flaky dough, and yeah, maybe the release agent is not so great after a week. That might be a good guess. The way I'm doing this. Okay, so I think I'm going to take this little tiny layer of rubber off the gun because I think that won't give a great won't give enough support as a mold. So I think I'm going to carefully, without digging rubber out from underneath it. Yeah. Oh, geez. Don't want to grab stuff from underneath it. I think I didn't want I didn't want a film of rubber on the bottom side. I tried to build it up with dough there. Frame is very falling apart. Just a little bit. Every single time I pick up a craft knife, every single time I pick up an X-Acto knife, I think of our late friend DJ, who had an art degree, saying, "Yeah, I always remember the first week, every semester in art school, all the incoming freshmen all had hand injuries from stabbing themselves with X-Acto knives that week." Every single time I grab one. I hope I'm not making a mess out of this. Okay, that's not too bad. Why am I not grabbing that little thing? You should go, and you should go. I think I'm okay with that. Let me, okay, that might be about as good as I'm getting here. I don't care about the bits on the parts away from the miniature so much, but I'm just trying to get the miniature itself as clean as possible for the cast. I think that's not bad. This whole thing's always a little bit of an experiment. I totally have made molds in the past that just wouldn't work, and I just had to restart from scratch. So there's always that possibility. It's kind of like an old school video game where you made some decision on the first level and you are lacking some critical thing that you need to get past level 5, and all your adventuring from levels 1, 2, 3, and 4 were basically a waste because you weren't going to get past 5 after that first decision. See, that's like real life. I might be in that case situation right now. Okay. Okay, I'm glad you agree with cleaning off the gun. Cool.
Hey, Laura Sudo, good to see you tonight. You know, I actually, it's funny. I have an optometry appointment tomorrow. You know, and I'm gonna tell them to be more aggressive with the graduated lenses actually. And then something came up, and I'm gonna have to reschedule. But I was planning on getting better eyes tomorrow. Okay, you know, while I've got this exposed right now, here's the thing that I realized, and I had it on camera before. So here's one of these pre-made Duncan molds, right? And this is the one. It's got 3 separate miniatures in here with it's supposed to be, I think, 2 goblins and an ogre at the time. And I'm in the habit of, you know, where I cut my teeth making spaceship miniatures that were basically symmetrical cylinders mostly, right? I got in the habit of putting the model symmetrically in the middle, aligned with the mold. And I noticed that the Duncan molds don't do that. They've got the player characters set at an angle so that the pointy out part is down, right? Is at least angled down. So this goblin here that's pointing, right? The extended limb here is in the downwards direction for the metal to flow down there. And this guy with kind of an extended spear, I think. It's not perfect, but at least it's not aimed up. Right. So angle the miniature, whatever they're pointing is now kind of downward. And this ogre here is carrying a big club, which winds up, again, kind of pointing either horizontally or downward. Right, at least it's not up. The way that I've got Blorpy here, right, he is holding his laser pistol upwards. So that might be a critical error on my part, right? The metal, when I pour it, the metal's going to have to come in and have enough force to it to come up through there. Now, I definitely have had parts of the spaceship miniatures that absolutely did that. So the Star Frontier Sethar frigates. You know what? I'm gonna grab one so I can show you what I'm talking about. No, I'm good. Okay, there better not be any like D13 chat while I stepped out. So here's one of the Sethar spaceships, right? And they totally have. So when much larger scale than the PC. So I had it in the mold like this, right? The metal would flow into the top here, and have to go down to the body, and then come up these little diagonal struts and up into the top part. That would actually work. That actually did work okay. So I'm hopeful that the laser pistol will work the same way. It's even smaller. It's less metal that has to run like this. I think this is the kind of thing that I could get it to work maybe on my second mold attempt. And I would have to cut in like air holes to get the air out of there when I would do that. But it'll work. But I got to admit that this might make things easier for me if I just aimed the pointy bits. See, this I can't do. This I couldn't do because it's symmetrical on both sides. But maybe for a character holding one pistol, I could have done that. So we'll see. We'll next week. Hopefully I can try to cast this, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, we'll just start over again, and I'll try to angle it better. That there's a lot of grenades in Star Frontiers. You're right. Hopeful. That's not good at all. Yeah. Okay. So I think I'm going to call that clean enough. Is there no way to rotate the mold after the pour? That's a good question. I'm going to say no because, and if you've seen some of my photos in the past, when you pour it, you're going to have a bubble of metal sitting here, right? The largest chunk of molten metal is right here. So if it's liquid, and it cools pretty fast, so if it's liquid enough to move around inside, it's liquid enough to splash out of here when you tilt it. And in fact, it tends to set inside almost instantly, and then this bigger pool on top stays metal for stays molten for at least a couple seconds. So if anything, it would spill out of here faster than it would and make a big mess faster than it would solve anything inside. Yeah, I'm 98% sure. I could almost try it, but yeah, the number one problem is it would wind up splashing out of here over me and my stove. It's a good thought. Yeah. Okay, so we'll call that good enough, and I'll rebuild the box up around my Drallasite here. So get the cling wrap out of the way. Oops, do I have this pinched? Okay. I should do this, right? Rotate it around. I just accidentally get to play with Legos while I do it this way, which is a value add as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's surprisingly fast. The I can almost, I mean, I don't think it's 5 seconds. When I pour it, it's like, bam, it's like, it's almost seconds. And I think if I recall, I might, to be safe, I might let it set for 5 minutes, and then I can demold it and it's warm. I think I got in a mode where I could do it faster than that. Like I could have the metal on the stove melted, and I could pour within a minute. I hope I'm not misremembering and hurt myself next week. Anyway, I'll do it, bam, and you can feel it's warm, right? You can feel it's warm, but you can take it out within a minute or two. And then, adjust the mold, take an X-Acto knife if something's not working, cut the mold a little bit, try it again. So next week when I do that, there'll be a little bit of an iterative process. I'm sure this won't work, the cast won't work the first time. But cut some air passages in maybe. Try it again. When I started this, I was very surprised at how remarkably fast the metal would cool. Okay, I think that's pretty good. I don't need to worry too much about I don't get a clean outside surface of the mold, but I guess I don't care about that. Okay, so pretty much, I think. Here's my math. So I assume if this is the second half, I'm going to need the same amount of material, the same amount of rubber that I used last week, I assume. So obviously the length and the width are the same, and this is half an inch or 3/4 of an inch. Right, okay, the whole thing's 1.5 inches, so it's 3/4 for half. So it ought to be about just look at my math here, 1.2 cubic inches. That's what I came up with last time. So based on the units on my cup, that ought to be about 1/3. Yeah, so 1.2 is 1/3 of one of these units that I get here. Which I wasn't able to precisely measure out, right? This is as small as I ever make anything. So that's why there's excess. So I'll try to be a little more careful this time and get like each part, right? Each part is a third. So if in an ideal world, I would pour some pink stuff here to a third and some blue stuff here and get to 2/3, but might not be within my capacity. All right, so I don't need to put any dough in. I don't need to. I've already made the registers there. That's all that stuff is taken care of on the first part. And I can mix stuff up here, and then I'll have 30 minutes to deal with it. Put in the release agent and then pour it. So let's try this. Where are we? Okay, so once again, there is my Umu Tin Cure silicone rubber. You can see my post-it note there that says, "Don't forget the notches." Don't forget the notches, because I always do that, like I did last time. I narrowly recovered last week. And normally, oh man, these are stuck. Oh man, the two bottles in here are actually stuck together. That might not be a super great sign. Hopefully these are still good a week later. That's weird. What happened to you? Okay, so some of the pink stuff we got in the middle, and it's. Okay, so there's geez, that's got quite a bit over there. So here's part A, and here's part B for the blue stuff. All right, stir part A and part B thoroughly before dispensing. Right. So you're the pink stir and you're the blue stir, right? Something like that. Adjust for I was just looking at my air quality gauge actually. Adjust for altitude and room temperature. All right, so this is still good. I mean, I had a tiny little twinge of concern that this had possibly gone bad in a week, but I've had this stuff be good for at least a year, I think. I had a batch that solidified in 6 months, and I was highly disappointed that time that happened. I'm supposed to stir. What do I do? Do I stir A and stir B and then pour A and pour B, or do I stir A and then pour A? Stir part A and part B thoroughly before dispensing. Okay, so I'm going to be very literal about that and stir both of them. Do I stir, pour, or do I stir, pour, pour? Okay, this is much easier to stir. Oh, I didn't put down my newspaper. Ugh. I didn't prepare that super well. Don't pour it out, Dan. Don't pour it out. I have a non-zero chance of just dumping the whole thing out on my lap. Okay, that's pretty easy. Okay, so careful. Don't get hyper. It doesn't smell bad. I never even thought about that before. I mean, it's a little chemically. I mean, yeah, I should probably, yeah. Why am I doing? I just said I need to ventilate from the vapors of the rubber, and I'm sticking my nose in it. What an idiot. Sometimes. Okay, that's the only time I'm going to do that. Yeah, I'm sure there's some effect that one would need a little bit of a willpower to avoid there. Classic high intelligence, low wisdom. All right, how close can I get to 1/3? See, the thing is, it pours, it packs up, right? It doesn't go like water. It mounds up a little bit, which is difficult to see when you've got a third. Okay, that's gonna be good, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty good. That's a little bit of a refinement in the process. Is I can look under from the top and try to spread it around as it pours. Yeah, this is exactly. I agree, Lord Sudo. That's exactly what just occurred to me. Okay, so same thing here. I'm looking in here while I look out there. Try to get to 2/3. Yeah, okay. So right. So it's a little under one of my units here, I think, which is good. Could have done better. Use this to stir it up, trying to make it this nice purple color. What was I doing last time? Was I adding more pink? Because I was like, oh, this isn't the right color. I got to add more. Was I adding more pink or was I adding more blue? I think I was adding more pink, right? I think I may have done the exact same thing here. I suppose I could compare to this, right? Yeah, that seems a little blue to me. Okay, I'm going to pour a little bit more of the pink stuff in. Okay, not too much. I feel like last time I poured too much on my second pour. Yeah, this stuff is so viscous. It's like once you get it going out, it's by the time it hits the bottom there, you have an enormous wad coming out of the top. Don't think too closely about the words that I just uttered. That looks better. Okay, that's more the kind of purpley magenta color that I'm used to, I think. I think that's pretty good. Okay. And that's a pretty good match to what I had before. All right. Okay, so I got that. So I got technically 30 minutes to work with this. I mean, I'm just going to dump it in. But again, I'll put the release agent in here. As you do. So take my Man, ease release 200, and again, this is I'm going to take this over to the window and lead out the third floor here. Why is that not shaking super much? Shake well before using. There we go. I should put a cap on the Play-Doh. So there's all my replacement Play-Doh. Pretty much got the thing cup full. Cap that. Hopefully that will last for a little bit. All right. Now my air quality, for what's worth, my air quality actually did just tick up from green level to yellow level, which is okay. It's not terrible, but it just happened to hit that threshold there. I guess that's a carbon dioxide. All right, I'll be right back. Oh, that's stinky. That release agent is no joke. That's not a good smell. All right, and we're all set there, and then we can pour. See how close I got to the right amount. Can I do this without getting in the light is my question. There goes Blorpy for the second time. Oh, I did pretty well on that one, actually. Pretty close. Yeah, okay, that's pretty much as gonna pour out of the cup actually. So that was, I did a lot better on my amount used than I did last time. There you go. Cool. It's kind of gross. Let me just clean up a little bit here. Maybe if I clean up properly, my canisters won't be stuck to each other next week. Yeah, those are off-brand Legos. I could not tell you what the brand was, but they're definitely off-brand. I think they're taller, right? I think the main blocks are taller than normal Legos, which I like because I need them to take up space. You know, I was reading, I picked up John Peterson's Playing at the World, and I was looking at some stuff the other day. I guess he's confirmed that his second edition will be coming out next summer, I guess.
Summer 24. And I'm told, can I say this? I guess it's going to be in 2 volumes, I guess. Is that known? I don't know. If that's not known, then maybe I'm hallucinating. Lock blocks could be. So I was looking at his section on like some origins, some prior literary origins of magic user spells, and one of the first things he mentions is, you know, the overall vision of a magic user, of a wizard, has been set since at least Shakespeare, and then points to the Tempest with the character Prospero, and like, look, Prospero has a robe with stars and a staff and a hat, and when he needs to quit wizarding, he's going to put down the staff and he's going to take off the robe, which is weird because Isabelle had an audition here scheduled to play Prospero in the Tempest here in New York. And I'm like, that's a little weird. It's a slightly weird conjunction happening right now. She actually had to, unfortunately, she had to back out of that because she had another booking. But that was... Sometimes the universe is just like weird. Yeah, it's a fairly big, it's a fairly sizable update to Playing at the World, and he's had off the market for sale for a couple years, like 2-3 years, and I know he's told us in the past that he was planning some time to have a revision. I'm personally surprised that it's coming so soon. I know he's very busy, particularly this year with the 50th anniversary. So I'm actually surprised that he's managing to get that out this year. I would have expected an update like in 2 years or something. Okay, my carbon dioxide's going back down to the green level, which I like seeing. Cool. All right, so there's Blorpy. There's my Dralacite, and the plan will be next week, if all goes well, I'll be in the kitchen, and I will undo this, and I'll hope. I guess I'm just gonna hope that it worked. And I'll have the metal on the stove, and I'll try actually casting this. And again, I always know there's going to be a back and forth. And I'll adjust. I'll take the X-Acto knife. I'll adjust the mold a little bit. Maybe cut in an air hole, an air vent up where the laser pistol is. Try it 2, 3, 4, 5 times sometimes. Sometimes it totally fails, so it just might be wrong. And then we'll cycle back around, take our lessons from that. Okay, Dan, put the pointy stuff away before you hurt yourself. I guess I don't have a cap on that X-Acto knife, do I? Can you hear the police sirens in the background? Probably with my window open. Or ambulance or fire. I don't know what that is. Yeah, is the book from WotC, is that the like original D&D in draft investigation? Okay, well I got to think of the one that Lore Pseudo just mentioned. Yeah. Yeah, that's exciting. Is it a okay? So it's going to be a reprint of the first publication. Interesting. How should I put this? Yeah, cool, super cool. Yeah, I think more people should see that. More people should see that. I'm really glad that's happened. Good, well-timed. Well-timed. Yeah, reprint of the first publication and a typewritten rough draft. Okay, that's what I kind of thought was coming,
And many of us have been very eager to see that rough draft, and I think that having again, the earlier I dig into D&D publications, the more questions get answered for me, and I feel like the earlier you go back, the more of a cohesive, sensible. You can kind of see where the rules are coming from and why. So I think that seeing that rough draft is quite likely to also answer a number of like gaps and questions and like, where did this come from? And you'll probably see stuff that like accidentally got cut or edited along the way that left things a little bit less coherent. That's awesome. With someone's note saying who wrote which parts, yeah. I'm hoping that we do that, Lord Pseudo. That's one of my that's one of my higher priorities. Is I would really like to do that, time permitting. Okay, let me put this away. Let me remind myself about. You know what? Let me be very careful about this. So I got a little piece of cardboard here to support this. I'm going to put this on my side table kind of carefully. Did I make more of a mess this time? I feel like I didn't have quite such a mess last time. Maybe I prepped my space better last time to avoid this. Okay, so let me remind myself. So next week's going to be a casting week for Blorpy the Drallasite, and then if everything goes well, then we'll cycle back around and especially, instead of a 2-hour episode, maybe there should be like a weekly, maybe there should be a side show where I just dig into parts of the original D&D draft bit by bit, week after week. William, thanks for checking in. See you later. Now, the funny thing is, so I saw this bit about they're going to have the chainmail second printing in there, and I have a copy of chainmail second printing in digital form. Does a first printing not exist? Does absolutely no one have access to a first printing of chainmail? I mean, because Peterson talks about what's in there. Is it because it was from Gaiden and they don't have the rights? I bet that's probably it. Because I never see anybody talking about the fact they have chainmail first printing, and I've seen people with, first print D&D, but everybody's always like, here's the best I can do is the second edition of chainmail. I was working on my priority list the other day, and looking at the new discoveries about original D&D is very, very high on the list. No surprise. Okay, so Yazirians, right? So the next thing's going to be Yazirian. So in this 83 set, I got this. The WotC interview did mention they could not print some stuff that is owned by Judges Guild. So that's probably first fantasy campaign, I think I saw, right? They would have liked to include Arneson's first fantasy campaign, as the book is called. But they couldn't do that because it's a Judges Guild book. I think that's probably what they were talking about. And then here's the 1984 player characters. Just comparing the Yazirians here. Okay, that's a Yazirian. And so is this. Boy, the scales on these are a little bit all over the place. Outdoor survival, right? Which I just happened to be moving around on my bookshelf today, I think. Okay, so there's the first set. Here's the second set. You know, okay. Funny thing, you know. So for my upcoming Star Frontiers campaign, right? So I'm going to use the series, right? I'm going to use the series of adventures that, you know, they had. The very first one comes in. It was clever marketing, actually. The very first part of a trilogy comes in the box, and then you have to go buy part 2 and part 3. And it also warms my heart a bit because they numbered it computer style. So the first adventure in the box is like Volturnus number 0, and then you have to go buy number 1 and number 2 to form your 3-part array. And so to start the campaign, I'm like, well, you know, so obviously we're going to have a session we get together, we make characters for the first time, and they're going to be, you know, introduced to the system. And it's not that heavyweight. I think I can tell people, I think I can communicate to people how to make characters probably, I'm guessing probably in an hour, maybe 2. I have to always like double things. And then what do you do with the rest of that session? And, you know, I'm not, you know, session 0, I don't think I need to have a huge moral chat with my players. I think we know what's up. We've, you know, played for a long time, so I think we know we kind of have our expectations in line. So what do I do with the other 2 hours? And I feel like I can't get into that first adventure because it starts with a rather significant ongoing, you know, shootout in a spaceship, in a large spaceship. And so I was thinking I ought to have some kind of little mini training session before they get sent out to interstellar space. And I was like, what can I do for, like, you're on the planet of Truane's star and you're getting your last minute boot camp, which hasn't been done very well because they're having budget crunch problems. And they're getting really, they've lost all their expert explorers, so now they're getting unknown explorers and kind of throwing them to the teeth. So what I came up with that was kind of, you know, low impact for me was grab the outdoor survival map and just have them run from like one of the huts to another one of the huts with, like, you know, I got maybe I'll have 3 encounters if I get time for it. Like maybe there's a shooting encounter, and there's wild animals, and maybe there's a melee encounter, just to kind of test run it. And then if we run out of time, I can just, you know, abbreviate the thing. So weirdly, for this game right here, I'm gonna be using outdoor survival because it's a gorgeous playable, gameable map, made again by Jim Dunnigan of SSI. Right? Did I get that right? Right, SSI, right? And I just, you know, I think I pointed it out probably 2 weeks ago, right? I got a copy of Peter Perla's The Art of Wargaming, and I had an opportunity to start reading it the last day or two, and there's a foreword by Jim Dunnigan. So once again, the book I just started reading has part of it written by the guy that made Outdoor Survival. It's all over the place. All right, which of these Azarians? So big difference in scale with these guys. So I think I'm leaning towards the miniatures from the first set. And as we've said, I think this guy that's crouching a bit would probably be a little bit easier. And this guy that's stretched out a little bit might be a little bit harder. I think I might queue up to do this guy, even though it's a little bit harder. It communicates the winged appendages on the Azerians, maybe, right? The scale is really So the Azerian scale is way wonky, and the Vrusks also got a lot smaller, and I guess the Salar shrunk a bit too, right? The Vrusks are probably the biggest. Again, in the first set, the Vrusks come in 2 parts. In the second set, they're just 1 part, and they're much, much smaller. I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know why. I don't have a theory about that. I don't know why. Good question. Might be probably cost cutting. I wouldn't have thought of that myself, but now that you mention it, that's probably about as strong a theory as anything. Yeah, I mean, cutting making the Vrusks just 1 piece instead of 2 pieces. I'm sure that made things simpler. The first set also has a human. I guess you can't tell what the gender is. A human with a rocket pack with a second piece, which is like the exhaust sticking them like several inches up in the air. So all the 2-part miniatures went away. I don't know. Okay, so probably this guy. That's going to be a little bit challenging. Let me think about this diagonal. So if I had him in the box, or her possibly. Well, that's okay. That's going to be kind of easy because it's already pointed mostly horizontally. No, but I don't. Right, I put the base down. Right, I put the base down, and it comes in this way. Ugh. So if I put it like that, that's interesting. Maybe so maybe this is about as good as I can do. So at least it doesn't have to go down, up, and then 90 degrees over. At least now it comes down, down, and then up. So instead of 2 corners, it's just making 1 corner. I should probably put it in like this, maybe, I'm guessing. I wonder where can I see any flash on this? Where did they come in? When they molded this. I think that's part of, geez, I can't tell. Good job. Good job on this first set, Azerian. Because I cannot see any, with a flash point is where it came in, but most of the time it's coming in somewhere around the head. Get out of there. So I think probably like that is probably the best I can do. Come into the head with the pore hole, put it like this. So the box might wind up being wider than it is high, the way that I'm thinking now. Come in there. And we have to go up for all this stuff. It's probably doable. Okay, interesting. That'll be kind of challenging. These thin wind flaps. I think I'll probably try that. I might come in a week or two and readjust my thinking. This is. I kind of like this, but it doesn't read with the wings quite so well. So I'll probably do this as my next one, and then try for the Vrusk after. So that's the plan. Anywho, so next week I'll be coming in and demolding the second part of Blorpy. hopefully in the kitchen. Hopefully have some bubbling metal at that point. And you can actually see the casting process and see if I'm remembering right about how quick it is to pour and cool really quickly, and then I can break it out pretty fast and adjust the mold as needed. Interesting. I'm glad you reminded me about the books coming out from John Peterson. That's actually kind of a really big deal this year. So I'm certainly really interested in seeing, particularly that original D&D draft before it was published. And I do think that we have some interesting... I probably won't dig into all of that, but there is some pretty interesting information in the court filings of the case between Gygax and Arneson, I believe in 79. And so you get depositions from both of them about, like, you know, what did these notes say, and what part did I work on, what part did he work on, here's a document with my notes from him back to me, back to him kind of stuff. So I'm sure that when we get an opportunity to dig into that, I'm sure there'll be a lot of really interesting thing. I hope your players are going to appreciate the hours you put in these miniatures. Thanks for saying that, Lord Pseudo. There's a certain part of this issue that I need to pack in the back of my head. I just be like, just, you know, if it happens, it happens. I'm having kind of a good time just getting to take a break and constructing something concrete with my hands, and not just like do mental number work or work on digital text like a lot of our work is nowadays. So this is a nice little break, and of course it's more fun with you guys kind of following along or giving me advice when I need it. You know, the other thing is, if my players want to, again, paint their own miniatures, the nice thing here is I can just, cast some more. And I can come in with like 3 Gazerians and distribute them, and they could all take them and paint them to their own desire, would be, one of the things that's made possible here. In the past I haven't done player characters, so this is kind of a new field for me. I've done these, spaceships, but for player characters, I feel like there's a number of interesting options here for the, possibly a miniature heavy game like Star Frontiers was kind of out of the box. Yeah, thanks for saying that. Hopefully it makes an impact. My players, we don't do a lot of, I don't think we do a lot of miniature stuff. We like role playing with miniatures might be a little bit of a new step. So even that's going to be experimental to see if my players that, do a lot of improv people that I hang out with here in New York, do a lot of, sometimes narrative type games are what they're into. So, I hope it's an interesting piece of variety, and they do wargaming actually, so to them it might be kind of a fresh mix to have a bunch of miniatures in with the role-playing game. Hopefully it goes. If not, we'll go great, we tried that and move on to something else. We actually, for the role-playing games, we actually don't. And of course, I have gone through cycles in my life of back and forth like many gamers have. And probably for, like for D&D nowadays, I tend to be very miniature light, but I can't get around the fact that the Star Frontiers campaign is very specifically miniatures heavy with a whole bunch of battle maps and stuff like that it comes with. So I kind of want to engage with that experience and see how it goes. But yeah, generally our role playing is pretty miniatures. Like you can see, you can dig up you can search for the Wandering DMs episode on miniatures at some point. And I think that the consensus that Paul and I came up with was it's nice to have for an option if you have a particularly elaborate end scene, perhaps, might help. But in your standard, dungeon exploring, you're in a wilderness, just, anything could happen, and attempting to prepare for that might be more bother than it's worth, possibly. Yeah, Star Frontiers, I still have all of them, have big boxes of chits. Like really extensive, just everything in the game you could possibly imagine. Humans and Dralasites and Vrusk and Sathar and other aliens and robots and animals and carnivores and herbivores and this, that, and vehicles and skimmers and jetcopters and motorcycles and just on and on and on and on and on. And it was kind of interesting, but I'm guessing that it might not read so well on a table nowadays. I don't know if that's with slightly older players, probably just me in particular. So I felt like having, if I could have actual miniatures on the table would probably make more of an impact, I thought. Now, among the things I'm considering is taking the battle maps that did come with Star Frontiers and zooming them up, like taking a scan, taking it to, the printer and zooming it up double size, because the spaces were just half an inch each. And 25 millimeter miniature, if you're going to use that, that's is that an inch? Right, that's right. 25. I really got to know this. So 25 millimeters is about an inch, which represents about, we'll say, 2 meters. So the spaces on all the battle maps really should, if you're going to use miniatures, would have to be twice as big. So I'm thinking about taking those things and blowing them up by ×2. Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I totally played through all this stuff with the chits, and now it's like I pull them out and I'm like, geez, I don't know how I guess with a small play group, right? I guess with no more than 2 or 3 people, I guess it works. But if you have 4 or 5 or 6, you get up to 4 or 5, 6 people at a table, that's going to be harder. One thing I've been wondering, because, D&D tends to be careful, but this adventure was written for how many players, ? So you have a certain number of encounters and a certain, number of monsters or whatever that show up, or aliens. Was this adventure written for 4 players, or was it written for 8 players? It never says. So I'm actually a little, that occurred to me the other day, and I'm a little trepidatious getting into it. And if this adventure was written for 8 and I only come in with 4 or 5, is that going to be a big problem? Like, I will say the Star Frontiers referee screen came with a mini adventure that specifically said, this is tough. You might not even want to use your regular PCs because it's kind of a bloodbath. And you've got to have 8. You must have 8. If you don't have 8 players, then some players got to have more than 1 character. But the other adventures don't say that. So I'm like, I hope were they all written for 8? Because that makes me a little uncomfortable. Yeah, I'll probably have some comments about how it works. Again, I kind of have... I hope I'm not misremembering, because some people were saying, on our Discord server were saying, the mechanics are wonky, and I'm like, I thought they were okay. So we'll see. I'm sure I'll have comments. You go into it, right? You have high hopes. You're like, I like this part, and then push comes to shove, and you find something that you were overlooking that wasn't the best. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're interested. Awesome. Right? It's always the case. And it is true, that we have gotten a lot more practice playtesting these things than they had when they were published, right? At most they had like a year or 2 to work on it, and we've had decades to reflect on it. So we certainly have a lot more advantage of perspective than they did when they had to get it to market. All right, so I'm gonna wrap up the stream here, and once again, thanks so much for joining us live here. I'll be back next week to demold Blorpy, try to actually cast him, try to not melt the hole in my hand. Try to not damage the camera. Try to not splash molten metal on me or the camera or the stove, or you get the idea. Or asphyxiate myself somehow. I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And, of course, Paul and I will be back this Sunday for more Wandering DMs. So check in 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll have our next episode this Sunday. So hope if you can join us live, that'd be great. Otherwise, I'll plan to see you next week. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I will see you next time. Take care for now.